So this is going to be a reflection on different perspectives on sin. And then from there, a reflection on Mary. So this was motivated by the differences that I noticed in one of the local priests here where I lived, penitential rite introduction, as opposed to the one that I see on the Tyburn Convent London Mass, and that priest there, his perspective on the penitential rite. So here, this priest that I'm thinking about, he always gives a formula that we're reflecting on our faults and failings. He doesn't use the word sin. And the Tyburn London Convent priest, he's usually very deeply penitential about the greatness of our lack of correspondence to the love of God and the immensity of it. So, I mean, that's quite a different perspective. So the priest here, I think, he's like most of us. Most people, they don't think of themselves as great sinners. I mean, they're not out committing adultery, murder, grand theft, assault and battery. I mean, they're usually at the most they might be losing their temper a little bit, or maybe even telling a fib, or something like that. Or they're in pain, they react sharply. Maybe a little uncharitable stuff, and mostly it's all concerning their interactions with their neighbor. Generally, they're not considering. I mean, they're not missing mass on Sunday, so they're not failing in their obligation in the first commandment. So that's how they see it, and that's probably how the priest is seeing it there. Whereas in the London convent priest, yeah, he's got a different perspective. Now, what you have to remember is this is a cloistered community of nuns there, and there's not a zillion, but there's a lot of communities throughout the world that this is representative of, and you never see or hear of it. So really, it's kind of a rarity to get a glimpse into that life. Because, I mean, you can know about it, reflect on it in theory and stuff like that. But what's happened with these people is, they've taken this instruction from Jesus to the rich young man to heart, where he said, if you want to be perfect, because he said he fulfilled all the other commandments since his childhood. And then Jesus said, if you want to be perfect, sell all you have and come follow me. And these people, and these consecrated people, they've heard that, and so they have left the world. They've sold out. They gave everything away. They've disposed of all they possessed, and they're going to be focused on loving God with their entire being, which is different from what we're doing out here. I mean, we're trying to do it, but I mean, let's face it. So that's why they've left the world, and it's a consistent thing, since the very beginning. Hermits and people, they realize, out in the world, in interaction with the world, I mean, there's so many distractions. It's not easy to fulfill that commandment of loving God with your whole mind, heart, and strength. I mean, it's not easy to do. So eliminating distractions helps you to focus, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And you can say, well, what about the second commandment then of loving your neighbor? That's what obviously these people have seen, which is the same thing that Jesus said to Martha when she was telling him, have Mary help me. And Jesus was going, no, Mary's latched on to the secret of life, loving him with everything that she's got. And how does that fulfill the second commandment? Because, and this is what people, if you get to heaven, you see it, because once you see God, you realize in loving him, you'll fulfill all the commandments, because then you're going to be loving your neighbor with the love of God, which is much better than any love you've got on your own. Okay, so there's no contradiction there. You just love God with your entire being, and that's what you're going to do in heaven. And the neighbor's not left out. You're loving them with his love, not your love. All right, so they've seen this. Somewhere along the line, they caught a glimpse of this, so they go, okay, why waste time? Let's start now. So they get into the cloister, and that's what they're trying to do. But what you find out is, yeah, when you've got the infection of sin in you, like we all have, yeah, it's not easy to keep that maximum effort up at all times. And actually, the closer you get to it, the more you realize how far you are from it. And that's what that Tyburn priest is saying, how far from it we are. And so we keep trying, okay? So then that brings up the thought of, well, what about Mary? She was conceived without sin. Now, this requires that you believe what the church teaches about Mary, which is that she was conceived without sin. Also that she was sinless during her life, which also makes sense, which if you're conceived without sin, why would you then turn to sin after that? At any rate, yeah. So being conceived without sin, that you have to see that in the terms of that Tyburn convent priest's view, that sinless means no defect in your love of God, zero. That you're maximally loving God with your entire being. Once you realize that, and you realize, oh, you know, that's a self-propelling process. If you do that and no impediment, it only can increase your love of God, can only increase and exponentially increase if there's no impediment. Because even us people totally infected with sin who are trying to grow in the love of God can still do it. I mean, it's more of a choppy process of stop and go. But if there's no impediment, I mean, there's no impediment in God. He's got no limit as to what he can do. And if you didn't place any limit, it's really unimaginable what the result would be. And by many accounts, Mary lived 70 years. So just try to wrap your mind around that. 70 years of exponential growth in the love of God. And that brings you to how Mary can be the spiritual mother of all. Because it takes a lot of perfection, very close to God himself, for you to actually know and love and give spiritual birth to every single human being that ever will exist or has existed. And that's what Mary did. And that's what happened.